Welcome into Sports Around the Bar. I hope it doesn't cut that part off. It usually cuts everything off. As you can tell, I am Jakey Bartender, and I'm here seemingly alone, and yet with this new system upgrade we've got. Drew, welcome to the future, man.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna quarantine myself off from the complete world. So, you'll only not get to see my beautiful face anymore. You just gotta listen to my wonderful, luxurious voice. That's
So
it from now on. That's it.
confirm then, you have coronavirus.
Well,
You're going to
I
die.
was I was patient zero, and I figured one round was not enough.
Okay, all right. So you're going to go try to survive Corona a second time while all the rest of us are just trying to get through. Welcome in, everybody. We have so much to talk about. All I can say is I hope Drew lasts long enough to make it through it with us. We have had one of the most wild free agency periods I think I've ever seen. Steve, first to arrive, goes on to say Buffalo, man. What a huge trade bringing
Wow.
in Stephon Diggs. But I don't even know where to start. I don't know where to start because the obvious start for me is we have to talk about DeAndre Hopkins. We have got to talk about what the Houston Texans were thinking. We got to, I even had some Houston fans try to sell me that was a good move by Houston. Couple of them.
Yeah.
Is there? Let's start with DeAndre Hopkins. I want to go in on that. I'm going to read a couple of these comments, then we'll do DeAndre Hopkins. I think about this for a moment, Drew. Is there any kind of positive spin to that trade for Houston at all, or is this just 100% win for Arizona? Now,
Dude.
Go ahead.
I don't even know how to explain it because when you think about it, you're talking about easily the best wide receiver in the league. Maybe two to Michael Thomas. Who knows? A lot of people have him number one, number two at this point. You would think it would be a king's ransom to pull him away from a team. This seems like it was unfair. It seems like a senior in high school went and picked on an eighth grader about to come into high school and just took his lunch for the rest of the year. Like, I don't understand. It makes no sense to me.
I don't get it either. But we'll try to go through all that in a second. Before we do, Bruce, good to see you. We're big fans of you too, man. Glad you're here with us. David, he says Brady to Tampa, too funny. I'm going to cut that part out, but I absolutely agree, man. I did anyone see Tampa Bay? I thought for sure there's no way this happens. But if you listen to all the rumors, man, it's already a done deal.
Yeah. Oh man, it's crazy. What are we?
Dalton, everybody's all in on Tom Brady to Tampa. Is that the biggest story today? I think it has to be, right? We're over the DeAndre Hopkins shock, and we're talking about Tom Brady now?
I guess, just because it's the biggest news that dropped before we go live. But, I'm not going to lie. I kind of live in the world of the past, and I haven't talked to, my Sports Around the Bar community about DeAndre Hopkins going over there for lunch, high school lunch.
I know.
It doesn't even make sense. It's not even a good lunch.
Not at all. Cass, good to see you two live, as always. Bruce says Jason Witten in Vegas. That's going to be... I'll be honest with you. That was a shock when I heard it. I know Dallas didn't have a whole lot of interest in bringing him back for another year, but I didn't think the Raiders were going to go after him. Could this be Derek Carr and company going more to a two tight end set?
It has to be. You don't bring in somebody like that. I know Witten's old and all that, but you don't bring a name in like that and have him sit on the bench, do you?
No. Well,
I get.
He's not going to start. He's not going to start over
guy.
Right, yeah.
No, but he's going to be in your offense. He's going to be in part of your system.
Yeah, I think so too. But who knows? I don't know if Gruden's going more to a jumbo set, and we're going to try to protect Derek Carr and utilize tight ends since he uses them so well. Or I don't know what the plan is, but he is definitely on the move. We'll talk about him a little bit more too. Justin says the mind-blowing moves this week are absolutely massive. I agree with you, man. All right, we'll go through.
And David, yes, DeAndre Hopkins could be the best wide receiver in the league. I don't even know why he says what.
Okay, maybe Michael Thomas. Worst case scenario is top 5. Like, what are we talking about here? We're kind of splitting hairs here. I think. Scott says Tampa wins the NFC the NFC, the entire conference next year. I think Scott might be getting a little ahead of himself, but you never know. Can they beat the Saints now that they've got Brady? If they get Brady, I know speaking of getting ahead of himself.
Well, let's admit here, Bruce Arians plays an offense that doesn't really fit Tom Brady's skill set at this point in his career. They're going to adjust that offense, which means you don't know where this offense is going to set going into next year. They're long, big bombs that you see Mike Evans and Godwin getting. That's not Brady. That's not his skill set. I'm not saying Brady can't throw a bomb, but that is not why you go out and get Brady.
I definitely agree with you. The mid-range game is going to be interesting, but I think Godwin's got the athleticism that he'll work out fine. I think the bigger question to me is Mike Evans. And I know he's a good contested catch guy, but I think part of his allure is you just send him deep and let him go up over a cornerback and take the ball away. I don't see Brady making a ton of those throws, kind of like you said, unless they're, in the red zone. I could see that, but for the most part, I don't know, man. It'll be interesting to see how the offense changes for them, especially with that offensive line. They're going to have to fix that with Tom Brady under center.
Oh, no doubt. There's going to be – I don't think they're done during this offseason. I think they're going to bring in some veterans, and then they have to go in the draft, go after offensive linemen as well. They have to.
And that's exactly what Cody said. I totally agree with you. They need a better running back. They need offensive line help. That's got to be issues 1, 2, and 3 for Tampa to take away from. Aaron goes on to say Martinez is to the Giants only means that their Giants are gunning for Simmons in the draft as well. Are they going to go that heavy at linebacker?
I don't think it would hurt to go with both. I like Martinez a lot, but even though he can cover, he's not your number one covering linebacker. You bring in someone like Simmons, man, he can cover anyone on that field, and then you got a sure tackler for the run game with Martinez. Maybe the Giants are making smart moves with this.
All I'll say, Aaron, is brace yourself, because when I saw that they signed Martinez, I said they're going to say it's fixed. Like, they gave him a pretty decent-sized contract. I don't have the numbers here in front of me, but I'll find it. As soon as I saw that signing come through, I think it was like 40-some million, close to 40. That to me says we're solving the position here by bringing this guy in. I really don't see them actually going back-to-back in the draft, even though I love it. I actually mocked Simmons to them here recently. I just don't see them going back-to-back that quickly. I think they're going to go try to address a different spot, probably offensive line.
3-year, $30 million Blake Martinez got from the Giants.
Okay, so it was 30. I thought it was like at 34 or 36, but I was a little high on that.
I was just going with what he said. If they go off and draft Simmons, I wouldn't hate it. I would not hate it.
That
would be a great move of theirs.
I would like it to. I just have Simmons so highly rated that any team taking him, I'm not going to say is a negative. Doesn't matter who you are. You can always use coverage guys like that. I think any team that has him, lucky to have him. If they take him at 4, I think he's absolutely worthy of that pick. He could be the second best defensive player in this draft behind Chase Young. I like Jeff Okudah a little bit higher, but you could definitely argue that way for Simmons. I like him. I like him a lot.
Yeah, no doubt.
Eric goes on to say, how do we think Carolina will do? Brace yourself. That's all I can say. Brace yourself. I know, Drew, you're more of a Teddy Bridgewater guy than I am, so I'm going to give you kind of the chance to respond here, but I think things are going to get ugly. I mean, they need offensive line help. They still need some answers on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the run game, especially up the middle. Now Luke Kuechly's gone as well. I think next year might be one of those tank for Trevor Lawrence kind of years. Sit him behind Teddy Bridgewater, and then year 3 on Bridgewater's contract is where you see him actually step into the game. Lawrence, that is.
Man, I just don't see the tanking possibility here. I think when you look at what Allen did behind quarterback with this team, and I know that defense is going to change a little bit, but you put someone like Bridgewater in there who doesn't turn the ball over. At least he has it in more recent games, and you would think you're going to see a little bit of shine there. Maybe it's such a different style of play. He's definitely a game manager. I think he has an arm to kind of hit those fast wide receivers that Carolina has. And, of course, anytime you put anybody that doesn't turn the ball over with Christian McCaffrey in the backfield, you're looking at some high-scoring games. The problem is, like you said, the defense isn't going to be the same. Tank for Lawrence kind of stuff, I don't think so, man. Maybe this team's a bottom 5 team, but I don't think it's the worst team in the league. Do you?
Probably not
Next year,
not off the bat, but then again, I didn't think Cincy was going to get it this year. I thought for sure the Dolphins had that on lock with the way they started the season. It really just depends. A couple wins can change things. Maybe Teddy Bridgewater's the guy who steals you 4, 5, 6 wins, and then you're stuck at pick 5, pick 6, pick 7, and you don't get a guy like Trevor Lawrence. So I think they're in the multi-year rebuild. I think they're very committed to this isn't going to be a one-year fix, even though their ownership has kind of expressed some discomfort, I'll say, where they said it's time for the Panthers to take that step forward. I don't think, looking at this roster, they really believe that is just 100% feasible and happening overnight.
Yeah, absolutely not. Not with the roster they have, and that isn't a knock on Bridgewater. I'm still a Bridgewater fan. I still think this is a good move for Carolina because if it's not Cam, this is definitely an upgrade at quarterback. But I kind of feel for Bridgewater. I mean, this isn't going to be his final resting place in the NFL. I don't see him succeeding. I see them drafting a quarterback at some point, and he'll probably be on his 4th team in the NFL, barring probably the next 2 years.
I agree. Now, Robert goes on to say, why do the Cowboys keep Lee and let Heath go? The answer is money. I mean, I guarantee I don't have the Sean Lee contract in front of you, but it's probably very close to league minimum. He's probably not making a whole lot of money here. The moral of the story is they needed to save as much money as humanly possible to give Amari Cooper that 5-year, $100 million deal, which, to my surprise, Drew, apparently Washington offered him more than that, and he said, I'd rather stay in Dallas and try to win a Super Bowl. What do you think of that?
It's crazy. I mean, when you believe in your team around you, that's what you do. Lee got 4.5 million for 1 year. So
that's higher than I would have expected. Didn't have that in front of me, but that's much higher than I would have thought.
You're good. Yeah, you're good. I pulled it up for you, man. Definitely a little bit above league minimum there, so veteran minimum at least. I can't blame him, man. I mean, I know there's a lot of players out there that are like, I want to go to a team that's going to pay me the most money. And then the in my opinion, and I don't want to call them the good players, but the players that I like on my team are like, I want to stay here because I create a bonding with my teammates. I believe in what we're doing here in this system and it works. I'm willing to take that discount to be here. I mean, it's kind of like what everyone's searching for when they go in and they start interviewing all these draftees. You're like, you kind of try to learn who they are, and then, you sign them to a 5-year contract as, first round draft picks, and you kind of hope they're going to sign again for you if they work out. This is kind of the player that all teams are looking for. It's like, I believe in this. I want to stay here. Yeah, I want to be paid, but I'm going to take a discount to stay.
Right, and Justin goes on to say, we're paying Teddy Bridgewater $60 million to tank. Essentially, yes. I mean, it's a 3-year deal. I don't know what else to tell you. That's the market value for a quarterback these days. That's under the market value. $20 million a year these days for a starting quarterback is a steal, and you still have to sell tickets. That's the big thing, Justin. You still have to put the asses in the seats. Otherwise, the program all falls apart. It takes forever for the fans to come back. I mean, Tennessee went through that for years when we had, just a couple down seasons. So, yeah, I think they still want a somewhat competitive product. Do I think they're trying to go 0-16? No. But do I think they signed Teddy Bridgewater and said, oh, well, we're going to the Super Bowl now? Of course I don't. I think this is the bridge quarterback, no pun intended with his name being Bridgewater. This is the bridge quarterback that they've brought in to say, he's going to get us there until we get the next guy. Do I think long-term they expect Teddy Bridgewater to succeed there? No, not at all.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't the first quarterback to make $60 million to only play for this team for a year. I mean, this isn't going to be this isn't first. This isn't going to be the last. This is the going rate. And yeah, $60 million to be there for a year, maybe 2, and move on. That's normal.
Robert also goes on to say Breeze versus Brady twice a year is going to be awesome, and I absolutely agree with you. Finally, Brady has another great quarterback in this division. Do some of those excuses start to run away if Brady can dominate the NFC South the same way he's kind of dominated the AFC South? Because we've been on that bandwagon too. We've been the guys saying, hey, look, part of his success has been just the easy walk through the AFC East. It's not quite so easy in the NFC South, I would say.
No, it's definitely not. Man, are we going to get into this Brady talk? Is that what we're going to do? I got so much to say. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's talk Tom Brady. We can't hold off forever.
Okay, let's do it, man. I'll get my spiel a little bit and I'll let you go. This blows my mind. If you'd have told me last year, ending the year, going, hey, Tom Brady's going to be on a new team, what team would he be? It would not be the Tampa Bay Bucs. That would not be the team. I'd be like, yeah, that makes the most sense. Yeah, they got weapons, but the offensive line doesn't fit. It's what he wants.
Right.
The offense doesn't fit Tom Brady's style of play. The conference, and this is funny, is, in my opinion, it's too tough for Tom Brady to go to. And I know that sounds so funny, but that's his whole career. He's played in a weak conference, and division. It's been super easy for him to get in the playoffs. This is going to be a struggle. Even being a 7-9 team last year with Winston throwing 30 picks, which Brady is not going to throw 30. I'm sorry, he's just not that kind of quarterback. For any of the Brady haters out there, I hope that fails and falls on its face. This team is going to look better, but I don't know if it's that much better, man. It may be 9-7, but you can give a couple of those wins to Winston and his fault because, yeah, when you throw that many turnovers, you lose games.
Right.
But when you go back and you look at those games, they're not losing by 21 points. They're losing by 7. So I would think that he could get a couple of wins, but I just don't see this team being an 11, 12-win team. I don't see it, man. I just don't see it.
I think they could get to 11. I think 11 is kind of reasonable. Maybe they split with the Saints. Maybe they have a little bit more trouble with the other guys in the division, but I don't think Carolina will be very good. I kind of talked about that. I think the Falcons are going to take a bit of a backswing here unless they fix that offensive line. If they get the offensive line straight, I'm going to say watch out for Atlanta again and Matt Ryan. They're always constantly a threat when they can protect Matt Ryan, but I don't see that happening overnight again. Even though they took a bunch of draft picks, they still have problems on the offensive line. I think this is going to be one of those scenarios where Brady is the difference between 3 or 4 wins between Jameis Winston and not. I mean, part of it, too, is entirely relying on Shaq Barrett playing well on the defense. A lot of it's Todd Bowles having that entire group of guys that forever, even though most of them were together, didn't play very well. They did a lot of work in their secondary that hopefully they keep progressing forward. A lot of moving parts to this deal. Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay. I think they could get to 11 just with him being there. Then again,
they're not done, man. They can't be done. This is not bring in Tom Brady and your team's fixed. There's no way that this is done. You know what I mean?
well,
I don't
the
want
cap
to steal
space
anyone's
would disagree with you.
I don't want to steal anyone's thunder, but someone put out there, Melvin Gordon. I mean, to the Bucks. That makes sense. It'd be a great piece. They have a piece that'll fit there. It's gonna be expensive, but if you can get it to work out, you get them there. You fixed a piece that's definitely missing because that run game was not good last year. And you lost Sue in this free agency. Maybe you sign him back. I don't know if that run defense is going to be the way it is without that big man in the middle and that D. You're expecting a lot of things to work out where they really haven't worked out in these last couple of years. And just bringing in Tom Brady just doesn't fix it.
I would think not. But then again, like you said, they didn't lose a lot of games by a lot of points. It could be just, Brady makes 1 fewer turnovers. Brady makes 2 fewer turnovers when we're talking about Jameis Winston a game, and that could be the difference. Moving forward here, we won't dwell on Tom Brady until it's actually a thing. Steve goes on to say, is Buffalo now the favorite for the AFC East? I think they have to be. I mean, The way they played. You shouldn't ask me this until the Patriots actually replace Tom Brady and put someone else under center, because if they go out and find a way to land a halfway decent quarterback, I'm going to say it's pretty close to an even split. I mean, they basically beat the Bills without him last year. If you look at the way a lot of those games shook out, they did not have a whole lot of passing offense. There was a lot of run game, a lot of dirty wins where the defense kind of stepped up and the special teams got the job done when they needed to. I'm not ready to call the Patriots dead even without Tom Brady. Although I will say this, unless they get somebody that I don't foresee at quarterback, I think I will say Buffalo is the favorite going into this point. I know, let me see, who was it? I think it was Martavius who said that he thinks Miami will be. The one thing I will caution you, even though I like these players they're bringing in, I kind of talked with you about this before the show, Drew.
Yeah.
It's really, really difficult to just buy a defense. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to just go out, spend tons and tons of money, go get great players, and hope they all mesh together. Very difficult to do. We've seen a lot of teams try it. I mean, how often do we have an offseason darling, kind of like the Cleveland Browns last year? I remember when the Eagles were there and the Jaguars for like 5 years, even though one of them actually worked out. It's very easy to look at a team, just sign all kinds of guys that were great with their last team and assume they're getting the same guy. Doesn't always work out that way. So I think Miami's still going to be in the tank. I think the Jets, they're not going to quite be back yet unless they have a massive finish to the rest of their free agency. I know they're doing some good things. They'll probably get better. I think it has to be Buffalo.
Yeah, a few things for me to add into that stuff, man. I'm with Martavius. I like what Miami's doing. I'm not with them as far as winning the division and being the favorite. As far as adding in those players, I do think they are trying to buy a defense, but I don't think they're trying to buy a defense year one. I think this might be a year two kind of project, because you look at like Jones, he has a 5-year deal. You look at Shaq Lawson, he has a 3-year deal. Van Noy has a 4-year deal. Flowers 3, Ogba 2, but Ogba is probably more than likely not your starter, but he's a great rotational piece into your defensive line. I'm kind of thinking this is more of a 2-year project than it is year one, and you're benefiting from a great free agency and which players you can bring in. But yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think Buffalo wins this, and I don't remember who it is, and it's kind of making me mad. I wish I could remember the guy that said Stephon Diggs will leave Minnesota. And Jake, me and you both said that there's no way that Minnesota's going to let Diggs go. We know Diggs is unhappy, but they're not going to let one of the better receivers in this league just walk away. Well, when Buffalo went calling and they said, "Hey, you can have this and that," and they threw everything in besides the kitchen sink at him, there's no way you don't get rid of Diggs. I mean, this is such a better move than what Houston Texans did, talking about getting rid of Hopkins. What Minnesota took away from the Buffalo Bills is great. It's
They
a
actually
great
got
move
some
by the
value.
Bucks.
They actually got some
Yeah.
value for a player that's actually good on their team. Imagine that. I know, novel concept in the NFL. You can't even tell me he's that much younger. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins, I know he's going on 28, but still, both guys young in their prime. I obviously got to give the edge to the Cardinals with what they gave up to get him, but I don't hate Buffalo giving up all those picks. I get what you're saying. It was fair market value,
Yeah.
and Minnesota got exactly what they needed when we're talking about them being so short on cap space. But I look at it and I'm like, man, Buffalo, even though they're going to be missing some of those low-end picks for the next couple of years, this team's ready to win. This, to me, is a statement of intent where they're like, we can win a Super Bowl. We were one more great receiver away from making it happen, and we kind of said that. We're like, this team needs more help at wide receiver. Everyone under the sun mocking them wide receivers in their mock drafts. I look at this, Drew, and I'm like, well, now you got a sure thing. Yes, you gave up your first-round pick, and that was likely to be a guy that, again, question mark every time they come out of college. Beyond that, you're talking about, what, a fifth, a sixth, and a seventh a year from now? That's pretty good for me. I think Buffalo did a pretty good job of hanging on to the mid-rounds, too. I mean, they're still going to be able to get good players in rounds 2 and 3.
Yeah, they gave up a first round, obviously, and then a fifth and a sixth, and a fourth next year.
That was a fourth. I'm sorry, I said seventh.
No, it's okay. Yeah, the seventh is actually going with Stephon Diggs to the Buffalo, and then that's this year. No, man, it's great, and they didn't end it there. They went out and got Addison for the edge. They went out and got Josh Norman, a number 2, maybe a number 3 corner. Already a great secondary. You add in a veteran like that, and they also went out and got Quentin Spain, the guard. They're making the right moves. I still think they got to focus a little bit on their defensive line, and I still think that they're lacking a running back. I kind of talked to you about that the other day about how Buffalo might be looking for a running back in the draft. This team is built and making moves like they want to win, and Tom Brady leaving, number 12 gone out of their division, it's got to be theirs. It's got to be.
Now, Ryan goes on to say, we're just going to ignore the Raiders making all these huge moves. Collins, Heath, Corey Littleton, Kwiatkowski. I always mess that up. Kwiatkowski. I still butchered it. and Nassib, and he also goes on to say, period, also Witten and Marcus. Yeah, I wouldn't be excited about those last two guys either. But no, they are. They're one of the big spenders out in free agency. It's exciting for Oakland fans that, again, especially towards the first half of the season, you could feel it, right? It felt like Oakland was starting to trend towards the playoffs, and I know they kind of fell apart towards the end, but does this big spend, Drew, put them a lot closer to the playoffs for you?
Man, to be honest with you, none of these names, even Littleton, which I know is a Pro Bowler, don't really truly excite me. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, it
I'm not
excites me. I like Corey Littleton. Mariota doesn't excite you?
No, even Corey Littleton does not get me super excited, man. When I watched him play for the Rams, I think he benefited from a very good defensive line in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the Oakland Raiders have that same defensive line in front of them. Even though Corey Littleton went to a Pro Bowl last year, I don't even really know if he should have. I think he should have been the year before when they went to the Super Bowl.
I mean, with his ability to cover the pass, this is a huge upgrade to me. I got to push back on this a little bit.
That's fine. That's not what they need, man. They need defensive line help. They need someone to help stop the run.
They can definitely use that. They do need help on the defensive line. I agree. But guess what? We're going into a draft. We're going to be able to address that there. They have multiple first-round picks, and nobody's talking about these great D tackles that are in this draft. All the hype is around the receivers. There's a lot of hype on the cornerbacks and a lot of sexy positions. Could we see Oakland go dirty, go get an offensive lineman, go get a defensive lineman, and just try to shore up the middle of the trenches on both sides of the ball? I like that idea. I mean, they're spending big in free agency. I think they could go and add. I mean, it could be they might get someone like Marlon Davidson to surprise the world, kind of like they did last year with Cleveland Farrell, and go grab him. The only difference is I like Marlon Davidson a lot better than I like Cleveland Farrell coming out. So they have a lot of options at defensive tackle. Even at, 19 for their second one? They have a lot of options that they're going to be able to make some moves. I think they're going to be able to address that D-line interior player in the draft, and then you've got Corey Littleton behind a pretty well-rebuilt group. I mean, I get it, Farrell hasn't worked out, but Crosby's been good for them. They've got other guys that are coming along. I think Corey Littleton coming in and being a veteran leader that can cover the pass, which is the hardest thing to find at linebacker in this day and age. I love that for Oakland, that signing in particular. All the rest of the guys, I'm a little less excited about. I like Jeff Heath coming in. I like even Kwiatkowski. I think he's a little overrated. It was just 1 year. Everyone kind of talked about him like he's this massive prospect going in to free agency here. I'd say pump the brakes just a little bit because Just because he had that success in Chicago doesn't mean he's going to have that success everywhere. But I like Carl Nassib as well. As for Witten and Marcus, Witten, you'll see him like 20% of the time unless they go to a more kind of run-heavy offense, and they might with Josh Jacobs the way he took off. And then Marcus, someone before asked me who's going to be the starter in Oakland. It's Derek Carr, period. Let me tell you this. I've watched every down of Marcus Mariota's career to this point. It's not even close between him and Derek Carr. I know everyone's to say, well, it's a new system. Mike Mayock had him as the highest graded quarterback in that draft. I'm telling you right now, Raiders fans, you're going to flip on him. Like 4 weeks from now. If you see him on the field at all, you're going to be like, what did we buy? And I hope Marcus succeeds because he's a very nice guy, but I still think his elbow's messed up from the injury he took from a couple of years ago where he had some nerve damage with it. At this point, he's probably just a mid-tier backup to me. He's a guy that maybe comes in and steals you a couple games, but you need Derek. If you're going to the playoffs, Derek Carr's got to have a better year than he did last year.
Ryan goes on and says, Witkowski and Littleton pass coverage backers. Sorry, bro. The Raiders' weakest position of linebackers, they struggled covering guys like Travis Kelce.
I agree. I agree with that 100%.
You could say that, but you know where that starts at? Your safety coverage. And there's a reason why Carl Joseph is no longer a Raider. I mean, that's just the best way to put it. I think you can bring those linebackers, but when it comes to that, and Kelsey's not top-notch speed, but when you expect them to be in that coverage position, maybe Littleton has it a little bit, but you're asking more of your safeties to do that kind of stuff. A lot of that coverage is mostly in the middle of your field. You don't really want your linebackers going down on a post route trying to cover a tight end like Kelsey. That's usually not a very positive thing to have defensively to go down. You want your safety to do it. You could say it's a weakness all you want. I to each its own in that one. I just don't. I think you're putting too much on, in my opinion, an average player at linebacker. And I'm going to call Littleton an average player. I really am.
I think he's far better than average. I know you said you like the Rams' defensive line, but I think outside Aaron Donald, Michael Brockers was all right. Michael Brockers, to me, is not a world beater in the defensive tackle position. I didn't think they had a whole lot of talent on that defensive line. I mean, Fowler was there for a little while. I think he shined.
Ooh, the Rams?
Yeah.
The Sue?
Outside
Aaron Donald?
Well, they didn't have Sue this year, and he was just as good.
No. I said 2 years ago. I don't think he should have been in the Pro Bowl this year.
I'm talking right now, the last couple of years. I don't think that the Rams' defensive line is that stout. It was when they had Sue. Even then, he was kind of in and out. They didn't use him on every play. And I like Michael Brockers, but still, just because you have good D tackles in front of him, I think Corey Littleton is that versatile linebacker. Now, this smells exactly like Alec Ogletree, right? Leaves the Rams, goes off, gets paid, and then doesn't perform for the Giants. It could be that. There's risk to this, Raiders fans. I don't want to spin it and say, oh, this is the perfect move, nothing to worry about here, because there is something to worry about. Obviously, every time you change defensive schemes, there's something to worry about. But as for what they're buying, this is the best case scenario, I think, of what you're actually going to get out of a free agent. It's the closest thing to a sure thing to me that you get in free agency.
Yeah, again, I don't think this is something that's like, oh, what a terrible move, but does this fix your problem? I don't think it does. That's kind of what I was getting at.
Not to mention you have Jonathan Abrams coming back from injury, even though I don't think he'll be covering as much. He's a little bit more of the strong side of things. You got Jeff Heath coming in that's going to help with the coverage. Just like I kind of talked about with Miami, it's dangerous trying to just buy a defense, and I feel like that might be exactly what we're seeing in Oakland. Sometimes it works out. Especially you look at Jacksonville with the run they had to the AFC Championship. They just did a lot of spending in free agency. The Rams had done a lot of spending in free agency, although not entirely on one side of the ball. It can work. It just usually doesn't work for long. So we'll see how it happens.
Yeah, I mean, just my last day, Ryan.
But go ahead.
Just my last thing, Ryan. I mean, I'm not knocking him. I mean, I hope it works out. I'm just not high on Corey Littleton as you guys seem to be, and that's okay. And as far as your safety goes, Jeff Heath and Abram went back healthy. Yeah, it should be good. There's a reason why you let Carl Joseph go, but to blame that your coverage linebacking core was the issue of your defense, I think that can't be the weakest spot. I think it goes everywhere with that defense last year. I think everywhere you had a weakness.
Okay, now we got to talk about it. We haven't talked about Houston yet. I think the dust has settled a little bit and people have got over this. What I want to know, Drew, is what exactly was Bill O'Brien, who is now the GM as well as the head coach for them, what was he thinking? Is there an answer to this?
Yeah, he's a teenage little girl that got made fun of or got mad and threw a hissy fit and made a stupid choice. There's no explanation, man. There's nothing. This is ridiculous. Even if you're gonna get rid of Hopkins, you don't give him away for that.
For
You don't.
a second-round pick and swapping fourths. I know they get David Johnson, and everyone's going to tell me, hey, 2016, he was the best running back in the league or one of the top two. Yeah, but that was 3 years ago, and he hasn't been good since then. And he's been injured, and now he's 28, and he's a $13 million cap hit, which I know everyone's going to say 10, but after they pay all the roster bonuses and everything else, it'll wind up being 13 for him. That, by the way, the Houston Texans are eating the entire thing of. What? Explain this to me. I saw this, and I was like, that's fake. I was like late putting it up, putting a post out for it because I was like, it's not real. There's no way.
It looks worse because Diggs got what he got. That
didn't even change my opinion. It didn't even change my opinion. I was like, this is terrible. If you're going to make this move, they have to eat the entire contract. I'm sorry. It was
still a bad move. It was still a bad move. But the fact that if you had an option right now and you had Hopkins or Diggs, who would you take?
I would take Hopkins.
More likely, majority of people are going to take Hopkins because they think he's a better wide receiver. So when you look at what Diggs got, or what they exchanged for Diggs, it has to be more than that, right? It has to be. If this would have been the biggest wide receiver move, and I still would have knocked it, I've been like, well, I guess it's the market for wide receivers.
No, the market can't be that low for a star wide receiver in his prime. I mean, if this was AJ Green,
it's like, oh my God. Go ahead.
If this was AJ Green that was getting traded for this kind of compensation, and the Cardinals had said, okay, don't worry about it, we'll keep 50 or 60% of David Johnson's contract, I'd be like, all right, fine. Like, you're just getting him off the roster. It's what needs to be done. This is a 28-year-old receiver. That's the best of the league, or top five, like Cameron says. Nobody's arguing he's top five, right? Is anyone saying he's not a top five wide receiver out there? If so, I would like to direct you to the film. I know this year was not quite as good statistically or quite as efficient, I would say, as he's had in years past. But man, come on, like he didn't fall off a cliff. He was still one of the big reasons why the Texans made the playoffs. He's still Deshaun Watson's number one target. He's the guy that everyone goes in and game plans against. And you trade him for a $13 million, 28-year-old running back who still has multiple years on his contract. When you just traded a third-round pick for Duke Johnson, and you just traded, I believe it was a 6 for Carlos Hyde last year. What? I mean, they're basically paid the same. You're basically swapping DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson straight up and getting a second-round pick out of it. To me, if this is not enough to prove to you that most head coaches don't need to be the GM for their team, I don't know what else kind of would dissuade you from that. I think the Texans should look at this and like, we need a GM and we need it tomorrow. Bill O'Brien can't have this kind of power. Now, I expect him to roll through it for the entire year, and maybe we see another one of these crazy trades where he gets mad at somebody or they're not on the same page, and he just fire sales them out of town. He's going to wreck this franchise. And if you're Deshaun Watson, I'm already planning my exit for it. And I know I'm 3 years away from that by the time they franchise me, but I'm already thinking, like, okay, what team right now do I think I'll be able to go to when my contract runs out here in Houston?
I don't think there is any understanding. I think his feelings got hurt. He got mad, and he made a decision off of passion. And now he's going to regret it. I think when you did this to your offense, I mean, there's no doubt about it. He's the best player on that offense. I know Deshaun Watson's had a lot of success, but a lot of that success has been the fact that there's always a receiver that's double covered and still catching the ball.
Absolutely.
And this is a huge loss for Houston Texans. And if I was a Texans fan, I'd probably be pounding on Bill O'Brien's door at his house and asking him to leave Houston. I mean, that'd probably be what I'd be doing right now. Just to let you know, Brady has agreed to terms for Tampa, so it is 100%.
It's confirmed. It's happening. Oh, man. It's as crazy as it is. I was actually disappointed when the Titans re-signed Tannehill because I was like, it could happen. We could get Tom Brady, and maybe we win a Super Bowl with him. Should Tampa fans feel the same way? Like, we have this 2-year window, maybe 3 if he can stretch it, where we can turn this into a Super Bowl?
I mean, that's obviously what they think. They have to think that, right?
Maybe they're thinking we just want to sell some tickets and we want to get some Tampa Bay fans to actually come back to some of these games. I mean, they have problems with attendance. But, yeah, you would think that the thought process is Tom Brady gets us a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I would think so. Absolutely. I didn't want to ignore this. Jordan says Stafford to the Chargers. I didn't see anything on this.
So. Yeah, I haven't seen it either yet. But I'm not sure if
So
he's just planning or if he's just prepping for it. I know the Lions did talk it down a couple weeks ago when they were talking about Matt Stafford potentially being on the trade block because those rumors came out. Then the Lions came out themselves and said, no, we're not trading Matt Stafford. He's going to be our quarterback going forward. Would it be that crazy to see him on the move to San Diego or to L.A.?
dude, I mean, if they can make this happen, I still think this team's irrelevant going into next year. Bringing in a rookie, I think they're going to struggle. You bring in Stafford with that offensive weapons, this could be again maybe a cuss playoff team.
But then again, he doesn't pass well to tight ends. I know they have Hunter Henry coming back in the franchise tag. I know Keenan Allen is a good receiver as well. You could say great, but I just think he spends a lot of time injured. I think I don't know. I'm not sold on Mike Williams yet. Everyone tells me he's a great receiver, and I'm like, show me the stats. Every time I watch him, there's too many times he's taken away for a guy that's that big. I don't think Stafford helps because, again, he's going to be under siege. The Lions, the first thing they kind of figured out was we need to eventually put this line back together. They did that. Stafford's gotten much improved over that kind of dip he's had from a couple of years ago. And I think it would be a big step back for him. They wouldn't be able to protect him still. I know they traded for Trey Turner, but that's not. They had to get rid of Okun to make that happen.
I think when you think about Eckler, Hunter, and I just blanked out on Keenan Allen. That's kind of what you need right there. I mean, when's the last time the Lions had a number one receiver, tight end, and a running back all together?
Never.
It's been a long time.
Well, you can just say running back, and until Kerryon Johnson, the answer was never.
So that's kind of when you're saying, well, Matthew Stafford never had those weapons. Offensive line, I think it's kind of like a wash. I wouldn't sit there and say the Lions are a better offensive line than the Chargers.
I definitely disagree with that. I think the Lions are a much better offensive line. I know they lost Graham Glasgow here recently, but they're still they've got much better pass protectors. They're not great pushing the line and blocking for the run just yet, but to me, it's night and day. I think the Chargers are like a bottom 5 group in the league, and the Lions are probably somewhere maybe above 15, maybe like 12, 13, 14 as a unit.
Man, you're just higher on than I am. I guess I didn't see it. I mean, there's a
obviously
reason
it wasn't enough to win games.
I mean, Stafford's all banged up, man. They're going through quarterbacks. There's a reason. They're getting hit.
That is true. Now, Cass goes on to say Houston clearly has a case of corona going on because that trade is sickening. And JP's saying that Bill O'Brien does not have a buffer between players. Players usually at least have to dislike both the GM and the coach to truly be upset, but for Houston, it's all or nothing. And I agree with that. You're either on the Bill O'Brien's path or, you're his way or the highway. I totally agree with that. Cody
Cameron goes.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, Cameron says Brady to the Bucks and Godwin is going to be a top 5 PPR receiver easy. Do you think with Brady going there, is there a change? I mean, they're both top 5 fantasy receivers until Evans went down anyways.
Right.
Does this change any of that? Do they take a step back? He's obviously already keeping them up there. I don't know if they're going to – I think it's going to be a step back a little bit.
I think it'll still be up there because they won't be able to run, and it's going to come down to Tom Brady throwing nonstop because that's what it takes to win in Tampa Bay here. I don't think they're going to have the offensive line to consistently put a run game on the board. So, yeah, I'd still like Godwin as a top 5 PPR receiver. I don't know that I go so far as say outside of points per reception, but inside with the points per reception, I think Godwin's going to get a lot of work with Tom Brady. A lot of it. Even though I like Mike Evans, he's more of the possession guy. I think it's still Godwin. It's now Godwin's team, and Mike Evans, crazy as it sounds, is the second wide receiver in that group.
And that easily could be. I think it's the tight ends. I think you're going to see the tight ends numbers go up, and you're going to see the receiving core go down. Not that I think that Godwin's a terrible player. I think he'll still be a top 10, probably fantasy wide receiver. I just don't know if he stays that high in it. I just don't know.
I absolutely agree with you. And Steve says real quick, all of Buffalo's late-round picks that went to Minnesota were double picks, meaning they had replacements for them in the late rounds. I didn't see that per se, but even if it wasn't, I have no problem with giving up that much for a guy like Stephon Diggs for his youth. I mean, if he was 30 years old, I'd say they gave up a lot, but giving up 4 picks when 3 of them are at the bottom of the draft, no issue with that at all. It's a couple shots you don't get to take at the bottom, but I still think that's okay when you're getting a proven commodity in Stephon Diggs and a guy that's going to be able to generate a lot of separation. There's a lot of talk about Josh Allen and his accuracy, but if you get 5 yards worth of space, you don't always have to be that accurate. It doesn't always need to be on the head of the needle. You can just put it in there, let him catch it, and then make something happen with the ball afterward. Now, Cameron goes on to say, sorry, go ahead. Respond.
No, I just want to say there's no doubt that Buffalo's been in love with the number one receiver for like ever now.
Right.
They've wanted a number one receiver, and they've given up probably what a number one receiver's worth in draft picks, and they got it. Regardless if it wasn't doubles, I still like this move for Buffalo because it's something this organization has wanted for a very long time, and now they finally got one in Diggs.
Absolutely. Now, Jordan goes on to say the Lions will draft Tua, and Chase Daniels is signed with them as well. He is right on that. He was also the one saying that Stafford is going to be on his way to L.A., so we'll mark you down for it. Maybe you got your ear to the pavement and you got that inside scoop on Detroit, but I don't see them moving on from him. I really don't. And I think they're actually the team that's likely to trade out of their pick and let someone take Tua in that spot. I think Detroit's going to be still trying to build a team if you look at the way they've kind of attacked this free agency. They have not gone out of their way to just throw cash around when they could have reasonably so. So I still think they feel like they're on the rebuild path. I don't see them going and trading Matt Stafford, who, again, if you look at his production from last year, he was looking like a top 5 quarterback in the league before he basically got shut down due to an injury from last year. I don't see them going for Tua. I don't see them just hitting the hard reset when you've got a guy like Stafford that threw for 2,500 yards in 8 games.
Yeah, I want to read Castle's comment here. He goes, now that it's confirmed, he really doesn't know how he feels. He says he means he loves his Bucks, but Brady's knowledge of the game is undisputed. But he just doesn't know how he fits his team, especially considering that he's never been a Brady fan. It's kind of exciting and worried all at the same time because he knows he needs a new quarterback in just a few years. I guess, Castle, when you say that, you're talking about what do you believe your team is if it wasn't Winston throwing the ball last year? You were 7-9. Your quarterback went 30 for 30 for touchdown to interceptions. What if you could have done a 30 and just 20? What could you have done with 30 and 10? I don't even see Brady throwing 20 picks, regardless if he fits the system or not. I'm all about this Brady not fitting your system. They're going to have to change that offense. Could you imagine being 30 and 10? I mean, last year might have been your year that got missed because Winston couldn't stop turning the ball over.
Absolutely. I mean, that's 3 to 4 wins. You're talking about 20 turnovers, 20 swings of momentum that don't happen because Tom Brady's just taking care of the ball. No, I think that 30 number goes down too. I think a lot of the air attack was because Jameis Winston was so willing to throw the ball and take chances. So maybe you go to 25 and 10, but I think that's good enough. Again, that could be the difference between making the playoffs and having your shot at making a run for the Super Bowl versus you're 7-9 and nobody knows what to do with your quarterback because, yeah, he threw 30 touchdowns, but he threw 30 picks. As for him being short-term, that's okay. Windows don't stay open in the NFL forever. Take a 2 or a 3 year swing at trying to win a Super Bowl. If it doesn't work out, hey, you tried, and we'll be back in a position to draft again.
Yeah, and Winston wasn't your future anyway, so you'd have been doing it regardless if you kept him.
Exactly, and you weren't in a position to do that because your pick's so late this year. So all makes sense to me. 1 or 2 more of these that I want to talk about that I think are actually going to be more interesting going forward. There was obviously a lot of action going on here. One guy I want to talk about, Drew, though, is Jack Conklin on his way to the Browns. I mean, a lot of Baker Mayfield's struggles came because his offensive line massively regressed, especially from the tackle position. Do you like this Jack Conklin signing?
I do. I actually think the Browns are making smart moves. I know you might look differently than I do, but I think when you add Conklin into your offensive line, they're missing a guard last year. When they sent their guard off to the Giants, it was an issue. I still don't think this offensive line is fixed. I think it's never been the same since Joe Thomas retired. They still need other pieces added to it, but you bring in other weapons like Austin Hooper. You got Njoku, but he couldn't stay healthy. Maybe if he's healthy, you got 2 wide receiver options at tight end. They both can block, in my opinion. I think Cooper's still a decent blocker at tight end. I like this, man. I think it's a good move. It's just they're not done. They're definitely not done.
I agree with you. I think the defensive side of the ball is going to be a huge issue. They're going to have to address it in the draft. They also need some offensive linemen. It's not out of the possibility to go draft another tackle here with their first pick. A lot of people are saying Conklin kind of solves that, and I think he can play left. He can be on the left, but I think he's so much better on the right side that they're going to go out and try to draft a left tackle and not ask him to do that. The only thing I don't like about this, and this is the reason I want to bring this up, that deal, if you go and read the fine print, they gave him a 3-year, $42 million contract, but $20 million of it is actually going to be paid in the first season. I don't see a guy like Jack Conklin playing for $20 million and then going and making $10 million for the last 2 years of the contract. His agent even specifically came out and said, Jack is taking this short of a deal so that he can go and make use of the new CBA rules when they go into effect and make more money, which means, precisely, after next year, Jack Conklin's going to be holding out and Cleveland's going to have to go give him a new contract. That is the biggest thing I don't like about this for the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, but then it also means that Jack Conklin's got to go out there and play some of his best ball.
And if you look at this year, he did.
Maybe they're asking him to do it again. You know what I mean? Hey, it's fine. You want that money? Come out here and prove it to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, and teams, and you got to admit it, the Browns, who are hungry for wins, hungry for playoff bursts, are willing to pay players and then come out and give them their best. I mean, if there's a team out there anywhere that's hungry for wins and a playoff berth, it's the Browns, right?
I would think so, but again, $20 million for a tackle. You've basically redefined the market without redefining the market, and that's everyone's thinking it's going to be the deal on the back half of it. The last 2 and 3 years, well, the money goes down. We're going to have more money going into those 2 years because we paid it all up front. I just don't see a guy like Jack Conklin that, again, could have taken a lot of other deals. There was rumors that the Jets were going to give him $19 a year, and instead he's going to Cleveland. I don't see a guy like that going for cheap. I really see this as being it's a cash grab. He's going to go and ask for 23 or 24 when that market resets after the first year in Cleveland. All I'm saying is watch out, Browns fans. I'm not sure you know what you just bought. I think he's a great player. I think he can be a great right tackle, but, man, you're going to be stuck paying him like he's the best tackle pretty much every year for that contract.
Well, as Cameron said, he put a good move for the Browns, a smart move for the Titans to let him move on.
As long as Dennis Kelly works out, yeah.
I still think this is a move for a team that's desperate for victories. And you bring in someone like Jack Conklin, who's going to get a big contract regardless. You kind of got to pay up to bring him in. And guess what? This is one piece off that offensive line that you don't have to focus on anymore. You can focus on a different spot at this point.
Sure, absolutely. Now, another guy I wanted to talk about was Phillip Rivers. Again, the forgotten man, because I think this deal got delayed a little bit because the Colts were still holding their breath hoping they get Tom Brady. And to me, I'm shocked that they didn't. I realized Tampa probably just went and broke the bank to bring him in, and Phillip Rivers is only sitting on a $25 million deal. Could it have been Chris Ballard holding back the wallet strings again to is that the reason why Brady's not wearing the Indianapolis horseshoe?
I think it's a good possibility, but you're going to call me crazy. I actually think I like this move more than I would like a vice versa effect, like Phillip Rivers going to the Bucks and Tom Brady coming to the Colts. I think the Colts, in a sense, kind of got a better deal. A 1-year, $25 million contract. I know we don't see Brady's yet. I get that, but I'm guaranteeing it's going to be above 30. And if Phillip Rivers doesn't work out, so be it. It doesn't work out. But you got a starting quarterback who isn't injury prone, neither is Brady, who has a big arm, who can throw to your tight ends, you can throw to your fast wide receivers, and you're going to go out and draft another wide receiver. I mean, this guy is used to throwing the ball 50, 60 times a game because that's what was asked upon him. And I don't think you're going to need to do that in a Colts uniform. I think it's a good move by the Colts. I really do.
I think it's a great fallback. I like this a lot better than everyone saying it was going to be Teddy Bridgewater. I like this as a fallback plan as, hey, we didn't get Brady, but I think just Brady going and playing in Indianapolis would be unstoppable. They have mid-range weapons. They have tight ends. They have a running game and a great offensive line. That's why I'm kind of scratching my head. Like, is the money really the reason Tom Brady kind of turned his nose up at just, in what my opinion is, just a much steadier offensive group because of that offensive line? I think that's what Phillip Rivers has been missing his entire career. I think he's going to be a danger here in the AFC for the first time, and I don't want to say a long time because the Chargers have always kind of hung around. But I think this might be one of his best years going forward because for the first time forever, he's going to have time to throw. We've seen Phillip Rivers under so much duress that he just has to sling it, especially last year when they said, oh, the pick numbers were through the roof. Yes, but when you're just constantly trying to make something happen, you're going to make mistakes. That's not going to happen in Indianapolis. I really don't think that happens unless that offensive line massively regresses. The AFC South, they got to watch out for the Colts again.
Yeah, I don't see anything like that going on. As far as offensive line digressing, there's no signs of it. Bringing Costanzo back for another 2 years, he might only play one and retire. But I'm telling you, I like this move. I think this is the right move. I think Phillip Rivers actually has a good chance of being a playoff contender, and if they can fix that defense, in my opinion, maybe even a Super Bowl contender. I think that bringing him in, think about it. Think about Andrew Luck in the Colts. And I know Philip Rivers isn't Andrew Luck, but I think Philip
Well,
Rivers is closer to Andrew Luck than ever Jacoby Brissett was.
sure. Yeah, no,
With
hands
with
down,
Andrew
yeah.
with Andrew Luck behind center in this Colts team, everyone's like they could win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Why isn't everyone thinking? And I'm not saying no one isn't. Philip Rivers can win a Super Bowl with this Colts team.
I think it's because of the receivers. To be honest with you,
But
if T.Y. Hilton had like a year last year, like he did with Andrew Luck in 2018, I think we would be talking about the Colts as a Super Bowl contender with this move. But I think the difference is because we've seen that offense kind of go dormant last year, everyone forgot what those receivers can do. And I don't think Zach Pascal's really the answer. I think we need to see more out of Paris Campbell. But they have great running backs. They have great
You're gonna see improvement out of Campbell.
I like to think so, yeah. I think he can get better. I liked him coming out of the draft. I said I don't see him as an immediate impact kind of guy, but I think he's a guy that develops for sure. I don't know that year 2 is going to be enough. I think they still need to add to that receiving group, and I don't think it's going to happen in free agency. I think they're going to spend in this draft and go bring another receiver in.
Yeah, and I agree with you. But one thing we've known about Philip Rivers is he's not shy. He's not shy to throw the ball to anybody.
That is very
and
true.
I haven't really seen him not really connect well with wide receivers that are young. I know he's done better with like Keenan Allen and Gates out of the tight end position, but I think if you got a guy that can run routes and can get open, Rivers can get him the ball.
Cameron goes on. Sure, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Cameron goes on to say the Colts defense is now top 5 easy with Buckner. If they score 20 to 24 points a game, they will win the South. The only thing I'll say is Buckner took a little while to jumpstart his career. If you're getting the same guy that we got this year playing with massive defensive talent around him, then yeah, they're going to be dangerous. That him with Leonard, I'm drawing a blank on their linebacker's name, Darius Leonard. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
With Darius Leonard playing in behind him, the rest of this defense, they could be top 5 in the league. I just don't think they're quite that good yet. I think we're going to see a little bit of regression from Buckner. He's going to get a little bit happy now that he's paid that $21 million contract, a year contract. I think you're also going to see, without that same level of talent around him, he's not quite as dominant as we saw before, as well as it's not all on one guy. I don't think they're quite as good at the edge. They've got guys, but I just don't see them being overnight a top 5 defense. I think they'll be good. I think they'll be very good. I think top 10 is a little more reasonable, but top 5, we'll see. I don't know. I could be wrong. They've got. I was down on them last year a little bit going into the season, and I was like, well, they're playing better than I thought. Maybe this is another one of those years.
Well, this is how I'm going to say it. This is exactly how I think the draft's going to go. They're going to go out and they're going to draft a wide receiver. Whatever the best wide receiver is at number 1, that's who they're going to take. And then after that, it's going to be mostly defensive players all around the board, mostly focusing on their defensive backs. And then they're going to throw an offensive lineman in there, someone to play tackle at some point. Maybe after Costanzo decides he's going to retire, you kind of bring in that, and then that's it. I mean, that's literally what it's going to be. This defense is going to be littered with a lot of young talent, speed, and you bring in someone like I just blanked out on his name, Buckner, and you still have Justin Houston there, and like you said, Darius Leonard, and also some good safeties back there that they've been drafting throughout these last couple of drafts. I mean, I see it, man. I think Philip Rivers could have been the missing piece. Again, just like Andrew Luck was a missing piece. This team might be pushing a Super Bowl. Not saying it's going to happen, but might.
Absolutely. Any other moves that you want to talk about before we get out of here? I know Ian's in here saying Derek Watt to Pittsburgh's a great move, and Steve's saying Buffalo just signed Quentin Jefferson. Is there another blockbuster you want to talk about? Because we could talk about this. We could talk about every single game.
Well, we could. Cameron brings it up. Vic Beasley to the Titans. You guys let go of Cameron Wake. You definitely need to focus on your pass rush. It's something me and you talk about almost every day. We talk about the Titans is you need to focus on getting after the quarterback. How do you like this move being a Titans fan, bringing in Vic Beasley, who had one big season and it's kind of been very disappointing afterwards?
If I was going to give it a grade, I'd give it a B-. I like the idea of the upside. I like the fact that it's a 1-year deal, even though some people are saying, sign him for longer because, if he has that great year, we're probably going to lose him again. Yes, that is true. But I think I'd rather that than have a 2-year guy that kind of like Cameron Wake, you're stuck eating dead cap on because you just overpaid him and tried to extend a contract for too long. As for what Vic Beasley can do, he's going to be back to playing with a good defense. I don't think it was just on him for the lack of production, but I think a good chunk of it was. This year, if you look at the way he played towards the back half, he wound up having like 8 sacks in the last 8 games. If you can get that guy on this hungry kind of deal where he knows this might be his last chance to get a big contract in the NFL. I think that it can be a great move for the Titans. The other side of this, Harold Landry's not that big of a guy. Both of our middle linebackers, not that big of guys. They're both somewhere around that 240-pound line as linebackers. Now you're adding Vic Beasley, who's around a 230-pounder. The Titans forever have been known for their tough run defense, but they're getting awful little at the middle linebacker spot. And I know it's very likely they're going to have a guy come in, kind of like Kamale Correa, to play run defense. Downs a little bit, but they're getting really, really light up front. And while, yes, a lot of people talk about what that can do in the passing game, there's still a massive pushback in the NFL when you go and play teams like the Ravens and the Steelers, where they just want to pound the rock on you. I worry about this linebacking core getting as light as it is.
Well, that kind of goes to my next question about this is, you see Logan Ryan go, you see Cameron Wake go, and your defensive line's getting a little bit older, especially with Casey in the middle. Do you and Mike Vrabel taking over play calling? Do you see your defense? That's something that the Titans have been good for a long time now. They've always had a stout defense, arguably never the best at times, but still really good. Usually the staple point of your team. Do you see a downgrade this year with all these people getting a little bit older and, like you said, a smaller linebacking core?
And with Logan Ryan likely to depart as well, yeah, I could definitely see a big step back. I was not a fan of Mike Vrabel in Houston. I think he kind of underutilized some of the talent he had now that he's calling plays, and you're missing your Hall of Fame defensive coordinator that the Titans have had since that renaissance came in. I mean, they had Dean Pease last year for the last 2 years. Before that, they had Steelers all-time great, who's Dick LeBeau. They've had great defensive play callers that have been very creative defensive minds coming in and working with their personnel. I don't know that Vrabel's that guy. I know he was a great player, but I don't know that he's a great thinker when it comes to the actual defensive talent. This is his year to prove it. This is his year to prove me wrong. But again, with what I saw in that 1 year he spent in Houston as their D coordinator, I wasn't overly impressed. I think he had a lot of talent, and that team was just kind of middling on their defense. So we'll see.
Go ahead. Is your offense ready to take over? Is your offense, the Tennessee Titans offense, ready to take over as the strength of this team? I'm not saying they have to. They might not have to.
I think they have to.
It seems like you're losing a lot of good pieces. Logan Ryan played a pretty good year for you, especially when Malcolm Butler went down with injury. You still had a pretty solid corner. I know Adoree Jackson stepped up, but is it time for the offense to be the focal point of this team?
Yes, with all the resources they've devoted to it, and I know you can't keep everybody. That's what happens to a lot of good teams as things eventually fall apart. But yes, it is time for the rest of for this offensive side of the ball to step up. Obviously, pretty much under the 5 years of Mariota's tenure, and before that, I mean, Jake Locker wasn't any better. It was the defense that carried the Titans to a lot of wins. They got a lot of very near 500 seasons, whether they're on either side of it, for the simple fact that the defense kept basically 2 scores on the board and didn't let teams just run away with it. So, yeah, I don't know that that's going to continue forever. Cameron goes on to say that Simmons, Casey, and Daquan Jones will have something to say about the run. I hope you're right, but again, that doesn't help you when they're running outside zone and get around all those guys too fast for them to do anything about it. We'll absolutely see. I think the Titans have a lot of questions to answer. This draft is still going to be interesting to see what they do. But at the very least, I like Vic Beasley coming in because they were missing that last year. They had Harold Landry, who wound up with 9 sacks, but wasn't as disruptive on a play-to-play basis as you'd like to see. I think bringing in a guy like Beasley that's going to have some talent around him, even though they're light. I think every one of those Titans linebackers is very talented. We'll see if he can actually develop a little bit and get back to that 2016 form.
Cameron goes off, says, "Hey, Drew, just so you know, it's official. The Titans wrecked the Patriots dynasty. Hey, whatever makes your guys' 2019 season worth you guys celebrating, hey, man, I give it to you. You wrecked the Patriots
championship.
dynasty.
Didn't we do well?
You did great. You did great. You guys did awesome. Congratulations on your trophy. Oh, wait a minute. There's not one for that.
Okay, where was that mute button at?
I just want to get into my team a little bit. I know that a lot of Kansas City Chiefs fans are out there kind of just sitting there going, man,
now all of a sudden. Weird that happens when you get a quarterback. No, I'm just playing.
Where's our signings? Where's our moves? We're losing a lot of players. You know, we're tagging Chris Jones. We picked up the option for Williams. We picked up the option for Wilson, also our linebacker. I think we're kind of holding out. I think we're kind of holding out for some of the big names, the big contracts to kind of fall. And I see us signing some of these veterans, especially with someone like Chris Harris Jr. I think it's a good possibility that he might come to the Chiefs off of maybe a 1 or 2 year deal, kind of low end when he kind of realizes the market's not as big for someone that's 30 who kind of made his way out of his own team. I could be wrong. Maybe there's a big market for him. Maybe there's not. I think Kansas City's kind of holding its chips right now and just kind of seeing what happens. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Anyone that's a Kansas City Chiefs fan has realized during the offseason that we don't make big splashes. I mean, the Frank Clark move was huge, but beyond
the
that,
need was so great at the time. You just had to do it.
Yeah. Normally, we typically trade everyone away. Right. I mean, that's usually what we do. So I know I've seen a lot of people going, hey, where's our moves? Be patient. This is exactly what Andy Reid and Brett Veach and the Kansas City organization has done for years. It's you wait it out, let the big contracts go, and we'll find veterans that fit our system.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think the scariest thing for Chiefs fans is actually the DeForest Buckner deal, because now that he's hit that $21 million a year mark, Chris Jones is probably looking at that on the side of his eye and saying, I've been a lot more consistent. I've been a lot more disruptive on a year-to-year basis than Buckner has been. And if he's getting 21, maybe I'm a $24 million defensive tackle, or maybe I'm a $23 million defensive tackle. That would worry me a little bit, especially with the Mahomes contract coming up. I think that's another reason you've been quiet, is because I think people kind of forget that there's always these negotiations going on as long as they're allowed. And even when they're not, they're going on. I think the Chiefs are probably talking to Mahomes right now like, hey, maybe we work on this extension right now. Maybe we lock you down long-term and get you paid right away. And for that, you got to have the cap space to do it.
Steve says David Clowney is choosing between Tennessee and Buffalo, expected to decide by Saturday.
Well, Tennessee's broke now, so it'll be Buffalo. If that is true. I haven't heard that, actually. I know some people were talking about signing Jadeveon Clowney, but the Titans had around $28 million worth of cap space before this Vic Beasley signing. Now that they're around 19, they're going to need to save some of that money for the draft picks as well. I think they're out of the Clowney market. Don't have the money to make it happen. So if you're a Buffalo fan, something to be excited about if that Tennessee or Buffalo, rumor is true. Also, Cameron goes on to say, where does Leonard Floyd wind up? I think he's going to wind up getting a small deal. I mean, this is a guy that couldn't get it done with Mac eating double teams. I like that. I like that idea. I think he absolutely could wind up in Atlanta. I think any team could use him, but I think he's one of those guys that you're not going to overpay for him. Just with what you got out of him up in Chicago, when he should have dominated. He should have been a 12-sack-a-year guy when you're playing across from Khalil Mack and being a first-round pick.
No
That's
doubt.
what you should have expected. Instead, we never got that pretty much his entire career in Chicago.
Right. As far as Clowney going to Buffalo, I don't think you need him. I know that's crazy to say. I think everyone can use a Clowney, but I don't think you need him. I don't think you need that contract there. You already had a very stout defense. I know you need to focus on your defensive line a little bit ever since Williams retired, but I think you can do that in the draft, and you can do it a lot cheaper. That being said, if they did it, I wouldn't hate it. But as far as Tennessee goes, I think they're out of the running as well.
And Cody threw the Jets out there. I like that. I like that landing spot too, especially because they have the need and they should have the cap space too. So that definitely would not shock me if Leonard Floyd moves up to New York to play for Gang Green.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, guys. It was a fun show. Drew, I'm going to kick it to you for final thoughts. I had some special thanks, but then I forgot to write them down. So if you commented or if you didn't, thank you guys so much. Again, I'm not the one who normally does this. So you got special thanks handled, right, Drew?
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to hit this one last comment. Josh says, where do you think Miami is setting their sights on? As far as the draft goes, I think they're quarterback. I think everything is leading a quarterback pick. You don't go out and grab all these guys and give them those kind of contracts without a quarterback being drafted this year. If you were going to not go a quarterback, I don't think you'd be signing all this stuff. I think you'd be kind of, again, selling all your assets and getting draft picks to go into next year and go, we want the number one pick, regardless of what our record is.
I'm around a couple more of these. Go ahead. Finish up and I'll run a couple more comments. Cameron goes on to say, will Andy Dalton find his way to South Beach? No, he won't, because you already have Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's under contract there. No reason to bring in another veteran, I don't think. I think besides – you're probably talking about a more dangerous guy in Ryan Fitzpatrick than you are talking about Andy Dalton, as crazy as that sounds. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick could – I'm almost interested in seeing him play for another year. I think if you see Ryan Fitzpatrick play with this rebuilt defense and they're as good as – and they live up to the billing, that could be really dangerous.
Andy Dalton might be a Patriot.
I think that's definitely the more likely landing spot than Miami is. I think they've already got their bridge quarterback. It's just the question of when will Tua be ready to play.
Go ahead, man.
All right, guys. It was a lot of fun. Normally, like I said, we do special thanks. So if you did comment or if you were just watching, thank you guys so much. It was a lot. This was such a wild thing. Thanks for talking all of this free agency with us. Drew, do you have any final thoughts before we get out of here, man?
Yeah, man. I thought you were going to keep on reading comments. That was my bad. Guys, again, thank you all for the comments. Just because these names are on my board, Josh, Cameron, Steve, Cody, John, Jordan, gosh, you guys are all awesome. You guys are so great. I know this show's a little bit weird. I'm on, but I'm not on camera, and you guys stare at poor, ugly Jake's face. But we gotta love him. We love him anyways, right? I mean, we all do. Guys, I appreciate all the comments, likes, and shares. It means the world to us. It really does.
Last time I checked, you weren't the one featured on the show. We haven't had a show where it's just your face yet.
I had one, man. I had one.
All right, guys, it was a lot of fun. We hope to be back on Thursday to talk about the rest of this. And hopefully, I was going to talk about this earlier, for the first time ever, take your calls. So don't hold me to that. I'm terrible at technology.
Oh, yes.
But if we get it to work, you can call us and ask us about whatever you want to ask us about. So, 4 Sports Around the Bar.
No, let's talk about it just for a little bit longer, Jake. I think this is huge.
Tired, Drew. Tired, but fine. Go ahead.
No, you're not tired, Jake. Time means nothing to you.
That is true.
You don't. Okay. No, for real, guys, this is huge. We're talking about taking your calls live. We're talking about giving you a number. You can call in and talk to us live. This is huge. Now, I do want to give it out to everyone that's listening to us right now. Please be respectful. Please don't make us hang up on you. Please don't make us regret doing this. But this is huge. This is a huge step for us, especially Sports Around the Bar community. We're excited to bring you guys in, and not only bring you in, but bring your voice in, which is so much different, because when you're texting and you're putting comments out there, you don't get to put your passion in there. You have an opportunity to make this show so much better. We're excited to bring this. If it doesn't happen this week, hopefully it'll be next week, but we're really shooting for the next show.
Absolutely. As always, guys, thank you for tuning in with us. We hope we can get this underway. We'll have a phone number for you and everything. If we don't, again, it's Drew's fault. Remember that. So 4 Sports Around the Bar. Until the next time we see you, cheers, guys. It was a lot of fun.
See ya.
Now, hold on. It takes me forever to turn.